the main topic today is this morning, Laura Kolodny of CNBC dropped an article saying and accusing that Elon Musk is redirecting NVIDIA chips, thousands of AI chips reserved for Tesla, to xAI instead. And then she's also indicating and insinuating that the plans that Elon had said earlier, that they were trying to achieve 85,000 equivalent or H100s by the end of this year, and that Tesla would spend $10 billion a year was incorrect, and he was misleading. Now, her evidence for this is that there was an internal NVIDIA memo that was written in December of 2023 that NVIDIA employees said that Elon's prioritizing H100 GPU cluster deployments at 2x versus Tesla. He's redirecting 12,000 of this H100 GPUs originally slated for Tesla to X instead, and in exchange, the X orders of 12,000 H100s, which was slated for January and June, would be redirected to Tesla. So he flipped it. And so actually, Elon replied after that article because it certainly caused a stir. There was a lot of people who thought that this was real, that this was accurate, and that they're blaming Elon for prioritizing X and xAI instead. Well, Elon called her out as a liar. He also said that, well, Tesla had no place to send the NVIDIA chips to turn them on, so they would have just sat in a warehouse. He confirmed that the south extension of Giga Texas is almost complete. And this will house 50,000 H100s for FSC training. And he also clarified that of the $10 billion that he had announced that Tesla would make, expenditures that they would make this year, half is internal. It is related to the Tesla-designed AI inference computer and sensors that's present in all of the cars and Dojo, and that actually NVIDIA's hardware is only 2/3 of the cost. His guess for how much he's buying of NVIDIA is around, for Tesla, it's $3 billion to $4 billion. So he, made that confirmation. And so there's really, you could take any kind of news you have, new facts you have, and try to spin it any way you want. It still is the case that Tesla is no longer compute constrained. And in a previous post that Elon made in April, he said that Tesla's actually number 2 next to Meta, and X and xAI would be number 3 in terms of compute, if you then consider NVIDIA sort of H100 equivalents. So let's start with you. Alexander, did you want to start first? I know you got your time constraints here.
I can start, but I'm by far not the same expert Jeff is. I just thought this was incredible how it was hyped on CNBC. Laura Kolodny was on, I think, at least twice I saw her. And she obviously dressed up for the case in, the most Puritan white little shirt with blue jacket, looking like the innocent self she is. And then every time she answered, she tried to answer by asking questions that left the doubt open, and then nodding 3-4 times at the end of each of her questions, as if she was really convinced of her huge scoop that it was. And it was actually a nothing burger, because as Jeff will explain you in a second, I mean, there's just best allocation at the best moment in time, and Tesla is not missing anything. Tesla didn't pay anything for xAI. I mean, the whole thing is just an absolute nothing burger, and she tried to frame it as the biggest scam, and engineers are given from one company to the others, and there are even 6 people that left Tesla to now work at X or xAI. I mean, she's just unbelievably rotten. I don't find a nicer word in trying to turn these non-important stories to something important, and just make very clear this is all leading up to the shareholder meeting. They want, all these Tesla Q people, all these Elon and Tesla haters, they want to ruin the mood. They have the feeling this is slipping away from them, that there will be a majority for the points they disagree with, and they want to make sure they've done everything and anything to throw the spaghetti against the wall.
Thank you, Alexander. Before we continue there, did you want to make your information public, or the information you've got about the vote?
Well, I don't have information of where we stand with the vote, but I have 3 things to say today. The first is we have now a person that is missioned, a law firm that is missioned from Tesla in the UK. This is actually the UK arm of Innisfree. Innisfree is the advisor who is working with Tesla on this shareholder vote. They are in New York, and their London branch is called Lake Isle. And in the Lake Isle is one of the attorneys now our main contact for European shareholders, at the moment only for UK shareholders, but keep in mind it's in the middle of the night now there. I hope we have good news by tomorrow morning that this also concerns other nationalities, especially the Germans and the Austrians and the Nordea clients in the Scandinavian countries. But at the moment, the UK clients can already submit, but only have 48 hours. So this is really crucial that we do this in a very short lapse of time. A sort of a statement from the bank. So they have to ask the bank for a statement saying, I owned so and so many shares on April 15th on the letterhead of the bank, signed by the bank as a PDF, then sent to this lady at Lake Isle. Then she sends the proxy vote cards to these people, and then these people can vote. So that's extremely time sensitive. But remember when we did that survey 2 weeks ago, 19% of people that wanted to vote and couldn't vote were British. So if we can make this happen in the last 2 days, would be a miracle, but there's a huge potential of UK people. So anybody knowing anybody in the UK, let them know. I mean, obviously my tweets are out there with the exact explanations how they have to do it, which email they have to send it to at Lake Isle and whatsoever, but it's extremely time critical. The second point I wanted to make is for everybody else in the world, please make sure you voted with all your accounts, because lots of times people have the feeling, oh, they voted once and then that's it. It is one vote per account where you hold Tesla shares. So if you have an IRA, or if you have a brokerage account, or if you have multiple accounts with a bank, or your family members have accounts, each of those accounts got an email with the invitation to vote or got a control number. So if you have a doubt about that, make sure that you control that you voted with every account. And if you did not, get back to us, get back to me asking how to get those things. Usually you get it with a broker, you ask for control numbers, and then you vote on proxy.com. And the third point is I want to just congratulate all of the people that wrote letters to the Chancery Court in Delaware in March. Remember when we were all so upset about the initial preliminary result? And so there were thousands and thousands of letters written from all over the world. And initially there was a Bloomberg article by Dana Hull, another of my favorites, explaining that this will all just go in the bin, and that was obviously picked up by lots of Tesla Q and even some critical people among our community. And well, today it became apparent that these letters are now part of the public record. We have actually journalists, they're going through them to read them all. They're contacting certain of the people for statements. So this is now part of the public record. And why is that so important? Because that means this is now part of that law case and can be used by Tesla's attorneys in the appeal. So I want to thank everybody who did that then, because it was the right thing to do. It was overwhelming and it was not vain. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Alexandra. Do you want to speak to the change.org petition that Gail Alfar put together for Calpers?
Yes, so there are more than 3,000 people that have signed that. There's a link in my feed, but obviously the original link comes from Gail, so you can find it on her Twitter feed, X feed. So this is the petition to make Calpers think twice whether they really want to vote no. Remember, she was on CNBC. She was actually very well challenged by Andrew Sorkin, who I want to call out here because he's done a stellar job on defending Tesla and Elon the last couple of weeks. And so she said then that they are considering to vote no, but they were still waiting for a meeting with Tesla. So I think Gail was very well advised to set up that change.org petition so that people could express at what point they were disappointing with Calpers. We also had a couple of members of Calpers, so meaning their public administration employees in California that have their retirement with them, that went even further. So great effort by everybody there as well. I mean, there's so many things happening at the moment. I just want to also say there is more coming. these shareholders are the most motivated and best shareholders in the world. We are fighting on all fronts. I'm sometimes only the mouthpiece, so you hear a lot from me, but there are many people in the back doing other things, and some people really great stuff. So just want to, really thank everybody, because this is the most incredible effort I've ever witnessed.
Thank you so much for all the work you're doing, Alexandra, and of course, everyone else that's doing this. It is important. Please put in your vote, even for the Calpers petition. It does make a difference if everybody voices their concern. People's votes can be changed. Alex or Xander?
Alexandra, an honor to be a part of this group and all the effort that you have done, and Herbert and Jeff, and all the information you guys put out is just incredible. Alexandra, how are you feeling going into this vote in terms of percentage confidence that Elon gets his comp package? Where are you nowadays?
Now, to keep everybody motivated, I am slightly optimistic, but I'm actually very optimistic. So on the comp package, I think we have a really good chance to make it happen. Why? Because casted votes only count. So the ones that couldn't vote, or that don't know how to vote or whatever, are not part of that basket. And retail has 47.5% of that full basket, and institutionals only 52.5%. Do remember, in 2018, the percentages were completely different. It was only 30% retail and 70% institutionals. And then as well, Glass Lewis and ISS recommended against it, and despite that, a 73% majority was for it. So on the comp package, I am officially slightly optimistic, in reality quite optimistic. And but everybody knows now, obviously, that that's not the end. If we get a good majority on that, there will be 3 other usages of that. Doesn't implement straight away the comp package back. It's still in limbo, but there will be then what's called a Section 204 ratification in Delaware. So this is a new procedure in Delaware, where they ask the judge to now ratify what the shareholders have voted on, and that can obviously find some opposition. And the plaintiffs' attorney from the Tornetta case have already expressed that they will have some objections. So that's going to linger a while in Delaware. And then the second usage is that in the current case, where the judge still has to find how much the plaintiff's attorneys will be rewarded. Remember, they're asking for $6 billion. Tesla's lawyers will then be able to make the argument, look, the shareholders want to reinstate that, so in the end there is no damage. It's not as if something disappeared, or if suddenly Tesla has more money or higher shareholder value. There's no dollar value now gained, because obviously the plaintiff's attorney had argued that they are saving for Tesla 50 or 60 billion, depending on which share price you want to consider. And so they should have their fair share of what they're saving to their shareholders. Now the shareholders are saying, you're not saving us anything. If this passes, we want this back. So the second use case is in the current procedure. And the third one is, if ever this goes into appeal, which I think it will, then it's obviously then part of the record that Tesla can use in its appeal case, and it will be a much stronger appeal case if we have the comp vote with a good majority vote.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. I appreciate that. So let's get back to the original topic, which is, you can see that this vote is so critical. It's coming in June 13th, which is 9 days away from now. And so we're going to start seeing every single day one of these kinds of FUD, Tesla Q out in force. This time it's around NVIDIA, Elon Musk. Apparently, Laura's trying to what's the word? Attacking and saying that Elon Musk is favoring xAI instead of Tesla. What do you think, Jeff?
Hey there. A number of opinions on this topic. And just so everyone's aware, I mean, I've been in the procurement loop. I've run sourcing organizations. I've procured from NVIDIA. in the past. So I'm going to be speaking from kind of first principles of how this process works, and maybe help just everybody understand the allocation process and what it is, and try not to be boring about it, but just addressing the issue at hand. It's actually, and again, I'm a long-term shareholder, but as a long-term shareholder, my antenna is actually way up when I see something like this. If I were trading, I'd be more worried about the day-to-day, value of the stock and so forth, but I'm not. So my point is like, if something bad were happening here, and given my experience of like knowing the underlying process, I would be out there being saying, look, I don't like the way this is actually happening, and I'd recommend the following changes. But I'm not even saying that, because the allocation and reallocation occurs all the time. In fact, I would be, this whole system, this H100 system, at one point had a 52-week lead time last year. I wouldn't be surprised if there were standard quarterly reallocations occurring, and then both on the NVIDIA and call it the Elon company side, and that company side, and then monthly, and then definitely ad hoc. And in this situation, a couple of points I want to make. One is underutilizing something that's in constraint and needed everywhere in the world is like the worst thing you could possibly do. So shipping these chips and then storing them in a warehouse, by the way, NVIDIA knows that. NVIDIA knows when you're doing that, and that's one of the considerations that they use on the next allocation, on the next shipments. What NVIDIA wants to do is they want to get an order from a customer, they want to send that build plan over to TSMC, they want TSMC to build it, they want it to fly through the packaging process, they want to send it to the customer, they want the customer to take delivery, that starts the whole order and cash process and so forth, and they want that customer to install it in an end user application, and they want the chip up and running ASAP. The tighter that network is, the faster the money moves, and then the faster that customer wants to reorder. So once you understand the underlying thought process there, you'd understand that Elon's got different companies, they're different entities. By the way, there's companies you see out there that have 15 different entities under the same company name. A Foxconn, for example, has dozens of entities out there, and they have different entities that have different procurement relationships in different regions of the world. So the fact here is orders were placed, and it's not like the money is mixing up. It's not like, Tesla ordered stuff, this company took it, and then they just left it on like Tesla's books. No, all this stuff is being reconciled. And I can guarantee you, in the constrained silicon world, I've never seen constrained silicon not be reallocated. This is constantly moving, because when you're in constrained mode, if there's something that bottlenecks that process before that product gets to the customer, the last thing you want to do is strand that constrained silicon and not use it. So with that as kind of the underlying, kind of baseline of what's happening here, I think it's actually advantageous to Tesla that Elon has other outlets for the H100. So when Elon is when Tesla is having a conversation with NVIDIA, with TSMC on, priority and allocation, they're not just one company, it's Elon, it's three things, and it's just his presence in the world. And the fact that his AI projects have landed, like the FSD has landed. It's in production, and it's needed. So like he needs to bring up this training cluster, and it's actually like the FSD system is producing revenue. Microsoft hasn't even broken out what they're getting from Copilot yet. Just to give you an idea, like everybody like lauds like ChatGPT and private company, and then Microsoft Copilot. Microsoft hasn't even broken it out yet. We don't even know what they're even making from an AI perspective. So in this whole system, NVIDIA loves the fact that they ship stuff to Tesla. Tesla puts this stuff into production right away. And if there's a bottleneck, he has the ability to reallocate. But all that stuff gets reconciled. And if he's got to swap something, that's better from a utilization perspective. By the way, that's better to Tesla from a cash perspective, that they don't take inventory. The worst thing you want to do is take inventory and not get it out and not get it into operation or get it into use for customers so it can actually produce revenue for the company. So probably save Tesla a ton on the cash side. You can say, well, Jeff, you're only looking at the good side of this. Like, what are the bad things that could be happening here? And I'm just telling you, like reallocation happens all the time on both sides. To me, the bad thing that happened here is like private emails on a very, very private topic were leaked. Like, that's a problem. Like, this is not a FOIA thing where you can just like go ask private companies, show me the allocation plans for Tesla. This shouldn't happen. And I guarantee you, between Tesla and NVIDIA, there was a conversation of like, well, what the heck happened here? Like, how does this information get out? It shouldn't, because quite frankly, what's the allocation process that NVIDIA is using between customers? Like, this could open up a whole can of worms for them. So they don't like this either. So anyway, I mean, I could go through a number of different points on the topic, but as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh, this happens all the time. And H100, so H100 had the 52-week lead time. The lead times have come down, and it's still on allocation. By the way, it's still on allocation, which shows you like the fervent demand for this stuff. The B200's Blackwell is going to be on allocation, and it's going to be supply constrained into 2025, probably into the middle part of 2025. And Jensen said in his keynote over the weekend, he goes, I like to push, I goes, every new series, I want to push the limits of process technology. So, look for them to have some issues, and the next system will be constrained as well. So the other thing to keep in mind too is this whole concept and allocation. I promise not to get too wonky, but a lot of people have asked, or I hear pundits talking on TV of like, oh, NVIDIA, there's a cyclicality is coming. It hits every chip company, and they were talking about it. They're talking about this like 3 quarters ago. I'm like, you're so full of shit. Like, first off, you have to understand, you have to go look at the lead times. The lead times are through the roof. Like, this normal system should be like 12 to 16 weeks, and they're at 52 weeks. And these pundits on TV are talking about double ordering. I'm like, that's not going to be a concern. And what normally happens in this situation, and it's part of the allocation process, is a concept called take or pay. Now, I don't know if Tesla's on take or pay, or Meta's on take or pay, or Microsoft, or everybody, or nobody. I don't know. But in general, when you're constrained, you're globally constrained, and you're the silicon provider, you have a take or pay process, which basically guarantees, because NVIDIA is spending the money with TSMC to fabricate the silicon, all the fab time, all the logistics, everything kind of end to end to get it to the customer's door. That's on their books until it clears. And the worst thing for NVIDIA would be is customer orders a bunch of shit, and at some point they get to the end and like, hey, I've ordered too much, I don't need this, and they push it back. So when you're in this constraint mode, NVIDIA is totally in the driver's seat and say, look, like, we're going to do take or pay. It's like, if you wanted 10,000 of these in Q2 of this year, you're taking 10,000 of these. And if you don't physically take them, and I want to see you put them into production, by the way, if you don't do that, then you're paying me for 10,000 regardless. And that's what take or pay is. And it could come in various different forms. I would be shocked if they weren't on take or pay. And that's another reason for Elon and the team to say, hey, look, if I got a bottleneck in building this data center out in Texas, I'm on take or pay with NVIDIA, like, I don't want this cash to leave, and I don't put these chips into production somewhere. So hence them moving it over and getting them into a useful place, and then just backfilling once they're ready to take them on a backfill. So there's so many other points in terms of them not being compute constrained on the Tesla side. They announced that in March. CNBC could have put this story out 2 months ago. I think, to Alexander's point and Herbert's point, they're trying to get as close to this vote as possible to influence potentially a number of people. You can thumbs down all you want. It's just a theory or an opinion, you can debate whatever you want. You can come up and debate whatever you want. And I'm just looking through my my notes if I've missed anything. No, I think I've covered everything. The other thing is this process is a highly documented process, the process of allocation. Most things are documented very well, and they have to be documented very well because it could become a problem later on. You know, depending on how like things go. If you're on, you don't want to be on allocation for years and years because then companies are going to be like, hey, what's going on? So it's a well documented process. But yeah, this is what's happening, and I'd welcome anybody else's questions or opinions as well.
Okay, yeah, we'll invite some people up here to contribute, but you know the email that was discovered from NVIDIA or uncovered from NVIDIA that Elon did redirect the chips. It is true. That part is true. The part that I would be afraid of is if it was also true that Tesla's compute power is not going to grow as fast as we were expecting, that their promises of it becoming the what was it, the 100 exaflops by the end of this year, which I think we all at this point by certain tweets and that we've looked at, we think we're actually well ahead of that at this point. But Elon confirmed that the Giga Texas, it's almost complete, and it's going to house 50,000 H100s for FSC training. There were some parts, quite a number of things that in the article Laura alluded to that was actually incorrect. She was talking about, the $10 billion that Elon had talked about, and she did not correctly say that those were NVIDIA H100 equivalents. And then Elon had to go and explain what parts of that is part of that only 3 to 4 billion is for NVIDIA, which is still significant. So for Tesla, if Tesla's amount of compute is not as high as they promised, and that would be the concerning part. But at this point, it looks like there's no longer a compute constraint. That was in March that he actually tweeted that part out. He also replied to another chart that said that Meta is the king in terms of H100 purchases. He replied saying, well, if you include, in terms of full compute, it would be Tesla number 2 and XAI number 3. So, again, Tesla is well ahead of all that. So, this is all good. In fact, it's fantastic that Tesla, that XAI, it's actually good news that they're also buying as many H100s as they can. There's a lot of crossovers between what Tesla can take advantage of XAI, building Grok, having that incorporated into the bot, incorporated to the cars and so forth. So, Xander, did you want to jump in?
I don't have a list or something to add except that I love wonky / pissed off Jeff that is fired up, and same for Alexandra and you, Herbert.
Okay, so Jeff, what are the comments that you're thinking of other than that he didn't have room? Some people are saying that doesn't make sense. Here's Giga Texas. Look how large this thing is.
Well, nobody's saying you didn't have room. They have room for them. I mean, you can warehouse this stuff. It's not that. It's a utilization thing. It's a utilization thing, which is like, again, this whole think of an end-to-end supply network. It starts with sand. Right. It starts with, raw silicon wafers, this whole construction, and then getting H100s on the chip on wafer on substrate, building out the whole system, the neck, the spine, whatever we don't know exactly what they're procuring. We just know they're procuring the H100s and the DGXs from NVIDIA. But just think of this whole thing that has to come together. And the best thing for NVIDIA and the best thing for Tesla or XAI is from the time they start to the time that it's actually fired up and running inside of a cluster, you want that time to be as short as possible. And the worst thing that could happen is somewhere along the way, there's a bottleneck. That bottlenecked NVIDIA's earnings for the last several quarters of them being supply constrained. It would bottleneck Tesla's FSD effort. So what you want is you want it to just flow through the system. You want it to get to the end, customer, in this case, Tesla or XAI. You want it to go right into the cluster. You want it to light up, and you want it producing training results that can drive revenue. So in the case of Texas, there were other bottlenecks. So it could be the power, it could be a number of different things that delayed it. Whatever the case is, by the way, this isn't like a one-time event. I'll bet you there was reallocation happening all through Q1. I bet you there's reallocation happening today or this month. Like this is going to continue as long as they're constrained. And the way NVIDIA has set this up is they are going to be constrained pretty much every year for the foreseeable future. Why? Because they're not sitting on one platform for 5 years. They're letting it run. They're letting it run in a biannual 2-year cycle. So basically, they release the first of the series, then they do an ultra of that series. By the time they release the ultra of that series in the second year of production, the first one probably gets the supply equilibrium. The ultra is also released kind of on top of the next generation. So think of Hopper to Blackwell. So in Blackwell, there's going to be a Blackwell ultra. So Blackwell is going to be in the production by the end of this year, and basically next year, end of next year, they'll have an ultra version of it, and then 2026 they'll have the next one, Rubin. So they're basically NVIDIA. My point is NVIDIA has set themselves up to be supply constrained, and they're going to be supply. There's two reasons you can be supply constrained. There's many reasons, but there's two fundamental mechanics. One is like you're just starting from zero, like they're starting Blackwell up from zero. So they're going to be constrained in the quarter that they're starting Blackwell up. This is why it was funny. I heard, NVIDIA on the earnings call. It's a great earnings call. But when he says like, oh, we're supply constrained on Blackwell, well, no shit. Every new product that starts up in quarter one or quarter zero of production is going to be supply constrained. So they're going to be supply constrained on it, and they've got a shitload of customers. They have like 80 customers lined up for it. So they're going to be constrained for a period of time. So this is going to be, allocation is going to be happening from here on out. By the way, I don't see the CNBC articles talking about Meta, and the allocations they do between Reality Labs and Llama. I haven't seen any of those conversations. I haven't seen any of the conversations between AWS and Amazon. I haven't seen any of the conversations happening there. So it's just strange. It's not strange.
Yeah.
I mean, we know what's happening, but it's just strange because there's corollaries there that nobody's having a conversation about.
Okay. And can you speak to, that this order was for H100s in December, and Tesla bought 40,000 H100s, plus that Tesla will have their own dojo. They've got other chips as well. And why would they want to keep buying H100s? There's now kind of some rumors that they already ordered 100,000 H200s, and Elon himself tweeted out saying that, you're not going to put 1 million. Like somebody asked, who's going to be the first to make 1 million Tesla or a data center with 1 million H100s? And Elon said, well, why would you do that? You'd want to wait till the B200s, and they'll do 300,000 of those. It's not worth.
There's an answer.
Crazy.
Yeah. So this is brilliant on NVIDIA's part, and I'm a big fan of the company, by the way. NVIDIA, part of the allocation scheme for Blackwell is to look at the order queue for what that customer was doing on Hopper and H100s. And basically there is some prioritization that's occurring. And again, I'm not in the room. I don't know the allocation process, but in general, what I've been told is that H100 customers there, that it helps you get in line early for B200s. They don't want people, they don't want to Osborne themselves. And they've set it up where they let everybody know that we want to flush through all the H100s. We want all this shit ordered. We want it all out of the system. And by the way, we want to be at 100% utilization out of all the TSMC nodes. We want everything running. We want Blackwell to have a very smooth ramp. But in the meantime, we don't want people just waiting for Blackwell. We want you taking H100s. And so they've set it up where that's part of the allocation scheme for the B200s, is that you're taking H100s readily as they're available. So they've made everything modular. They made everything fully upgradable. They haven't made it where you screw yourself. If you get H100, like they've made everything kind of swappable. So yeah, They've done a really good job of not Osborning themselves, and they basically set themselves up to be constrained, which helps them keep pricing up for the foreseeable future. So, I mean, they have a good business.
You have a good business. I highly recommend people to take a look at Omar's blog. He had a great tweet this morning, a post this morning that he explained that Laura Kolodny, for those people who aren't aware, the author of this article from CNBC, this isn't her first time that she did this. She has had many articles, and even Omar was saying that when Aaron Greenspan was suing Omar and Elon Musk, this Laura spread accusations that Omar had child pornogaphy. This is what happens when Tesla shorts are desperate and that's what Aaron Greenspan was doing. And they were, it was just bad news here. But there's a history with Laura and how she's, often will try to spread this kind of information. There's some truth to what she said, of course, that the email was correct. And then she kind of said, this is what Elon said during the earnings call, but there's a lot of mistakes in her article. It wasn't exactly right. She didn't clarify that what Elon actually said in the earnings call was H100 equivalents, not, H100s in total. So these things you need to just think through. So let's invite other people up here. Do you want to say anything, JC?
Hey, Herbert. First of all, thanks for you got a great show. Love your content. Also, just want to say to Tesla Boomer Mama, man, you are a singular force of nature. Just love everything you're doing for everybody. But I also just wanted to, absolutely. I wanted to back up Jeff. I'm obviously not going to be as eloquent as Jeff is about this, but I do have, I believe I may have a good enough background here to give a little more context. So I in my day job, I'm a audit partner at one of the big four public accounting firms, and I don't audit Tesla. So just just to get that out there, no conflicts of interest here. I'm don't do that. But I can tell you, all of this is absolutely normal. There is an entire part of, and forgive me, Herbert, I'm going to use some terms that are a little wonky and geeky, but I think they need to be put out there. There's a whole section of US GAAP financial reporting and SEC reporting that deals specifically with what is termed related parties. If you go to any SEC public registrant and look through their 10K and look towards maybe the last 2 or 3 footnotes, there's going to be, depending on the size of the company, a 5 or 6 page disclosure on related parties. And it's all normal. And what happens is a guy like me, a audit partner in one of the firms, and Jeff will remember this. We'll sit in a room with a guy like Jeff, and we'll beat up on Jeff and say, all right, you did this stuff with your related parties. Show me your transfer pricing. Show me your arm's length transaction support. And it's a normal court. And I'm sure Jeff remembers this. He probably got beat up by guys like me and when I say beat up, I'm just saying making sure the support is all there. This is all absolutely normal. And what I'll also say is that their auditor is PwC, one of the best audit firms in the world. And I hate to say that. Even that coming out of my mouth hurts, but they are. And I guarantee you, they have the most crackerjack audit team on there. And those folks, there is no way none of this isn't being done based on proper corporate compliance for that. So take that part off the table. What is abnormal, Herbert, is for emails to be leaked. I have never, in my 27 years of auditing public companies and helping public companies put their disclosures together, seen anything closely related to this as it relates to a damn related party footnote. This does not happen. Something's going on here. Like this type of information that at any, I can tell you right now, and they'll stay nameless, obviously, but there's a lot of corporate executives out there looking at what's going on right now to Elon and saying, for the grace of God, but there go I. Elon is taking it on the chin right now for half of corporate America, and they know it. They're seeing all this. They are watching all of this extremely closely because You got CEOs that don't even know what's in their related party footnote out there. And now Elon's related party footnote is in the freaking Business Insider and Reuters. This is absolutely abnormal. And then the last thing I'll say, Herbert, is Jeff was spot on when it comes to these take or pay contracts. Absolutely. I would be highly surprised where NVIDIA is in their, where the levers that they have, that they don't have those in place. Like they are in the catbird seat right now. So I would be absolutely dumbfounded that most of their contracts aren't take or pay. And in a situation like that where your warehousing costs, I know it's like to folks listening to the panel, it's just, I just sit over in a warehouse. Like Jeff will understand this. That could be millions of dollars a day. Like just put like everybody just thinks a warehouse is like no, there's a lot that goes into warehousing stuff. Insurance, title insurance, all sorts of things, risk of management reserves. And just to name the fact that you've got $50,000 units sitting there doing nothing. And so that's completely normal as well. And granted, I don't deal with H100s, but I deal with clients every day that have things transferred between parties because one party can utilize it quicker than the other, and it never makes the front page of it. It definitely makes the related party footnote, and nobody reads it, but that's about the gist of it. So that's all I wanted. I wanted to kind of back up some of the stuff Jeff said, even though obviously I'm nowhere near as eloquent as him, and just wanted to give a thanks to you and Alexandra and Jeff and even Xander somewhat.
Love you.
But I'll drop back down. Sorry, I was so long-winded, Herbert.
No, that was perfect, JC. Your background is fantastic. You did bring up a great point that it is curious, is suspicious that this internal email from NVIDIA was leaked to Laura, of all people, knowing that how Laura would treat that. Thank you so for joining us, Omar. I've been telling people to read that post you did this morning about the background here. Can you?
We don't have the
in?
email. Sorry, just do it. Does anybody see in the email?
No, but I mean, if based on Elon's reply, he wasn't countering the email. Said he did call her a liar, but he didn't say that there was no email.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, the reallocation could have occurred. Who knows, like what information she actually really has when you're dealing with leakers and you're dealing with so forth. I mean, it'd been interesting if there was, the email produced with like the sender and the receiver may be blacked out of like, hey, I do have this email and it says this. But anyway, this happens all the time. Again, like I said, they're reallocating this month, I'm sure. So the fact that they took a normal business process and then they tried to turn it into a soap opera is like the dumbest thing ever. And the final thing I just want to say and turn over to Omar, I think it really exposed some people on X this morning too, because there's a lot of people that just like they saw the headline hit. They didn't even look at the author, which there's a bit of a credibility issue there. They saw the headline. They're like, oh, this is bad for time. This is bad. This is bad. This looks bad. Like, this is really bad. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, I think reasonable questions are okay. It's okay. You don't have to know like these underlying processes to ask questions. I think people should ask questions. You should question everything at times, but like there's a lot of people I think that expose themselves to kind of they jump to immediately like a nefarious conclusion. And I don't know, there's people that to me like disguise themselves as bulls, but they're trying to really honestly drive volatility in the stock, or they're trying to drive just, engagement. I don't know what they're doing, but it's bizarre. And to me, it almost like floats and ebbs and flows with the stock price. If the stock price was 250, I think this article would have been mostly like blown off. But so anyway, I think there's people that are kind of preying and almost like provocateurs on some of this information as well, versus like sitting down and saying, all right, let's get a panel of people that actually understand like what happens here and talk through it. Anyway.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Omar. Your tweet was very good because you came out very quickly and you saw right through it right away. And you said at the end there, sadly, many people will believe the story and repeat it as fact, but that it wasn't exactly true. And, Elon had to come out and confirm that that's what actually happened. Can you speak to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think to some extent the damage is done. You can tell that this is one of those things that you're going to hear people bring up. Oh, well, he did this. He stole the GPUs from Tesla without really having an understanding of what the story even claimed, which was really just a relatively minor swap in delivery dates from December to January and June. And I think there's a lot of people just trying to make sure that people vote no and drive just sort of drive a wedge through this frustration that people feel if maybe they bought at all-time highs and they feel that Elon is to blame for the underperformance of the stock in recent years. So I think you're going to kind of probably see more of these stories. This is just sort of the beginning. But the message really is, okay, this guy is a bad CEO. He's hurting Tesla, and Tesla would be better off without him. And hopefully people can kind of see through that and realize that he is the number one shareholder of Tesla. He does not want to harm Tesla. There's no grand plan to rob himself. And these two companies are not competing today, not even close. One is training a large language model, one is building self driving in a human robot. Would we like Tesla to make an LLM today? No, I don't think so. It would cost billions of dollars. Each of these training runs costs millions of dollars of training compute. If we have 100,000 GPUs, we should be dedicating that to FSD, not to training an LLM, especially when we don't know that it's even going to be competitive in the super hot LLM market. And we as Tesla have no differentiator to make it stand out across a crowded field. So it doesn't make sense for Tesla to do an LLM. I think if they want to do it through XAI, that probably actually benefits Tesla. They're probably going to use that as the preferred language model for Optimus and for their cars. And I think it probably also saved Tesla a lot of headache, given that the Texas construction was a little bit delayed, where they're going to set up this new Dojo data center. They would have probably had to either, warehouse it or just deal with the headache of taking this. And as Tim Zaman, the former head of infrastructure at Tesla, pointed out, this is a lot of space that thousands of these systems take up. I mean, this is a very intricate system. So it sounds like they probably saved themselves some headache just swapping the delivery date out with XAI. And I'm not really concerned that they're pulling any punches in terms of AI training. I mean, just look at the last few quarterly filings. It's just insane. A couple quarters ago in Q4, they announced that they had brought up 15,000 H100s. That was a doubling of training compute compared to what they had before. The next quarter, we hear that they're at 35,000. So again, more than doubling sequentially from quarter to quarter. Now, take a look at how many H100s General Motors and Ford added during the same period. They went from 0 to 0.
I love it.
If you gave them one of these, they wouldn't know what to do with it. So, for someone to say that Tesla's not getting the compute they need, I mean, they're just scaling up like crazy. They even mentioned when they were bringing up the first 15,000 that, well, it's taking time to just hook them all up, to set them all up. And that was in November. This internal email in NVIDIA was in December. So I don't think that Tesla was harmed here. I don't think that Elon is trying to harm Tesla. I think that Elon is a uniquely powerful CEO in AI. I mean, if you told Elon that he couldn't do any other ventures or start any other companies or do any other AI efforts, we wouldn't have OpenAI, which he started in 2015 and was the primary funder of, which, by the way, was after Tesla started selling autopilot in 2014. So was that conflicting? maybe, but not really. And as a result of starting that, poaching Ilya Sutskever, Andrei Karpathy, and others, Andrei started consulting at Tesla, and he eventually was poached and he came to Tesla and he started the AI team. Would they be where they are today without Andrei Karpathy? I don't think so. I don't think they would be at the quality they are today without his leadership. I mean, he's just really an incredible teacher and a pioneer in deep learning. So, I think the people trying to spin it as a bad thing that Elon has other companies are missing the fact that it's actually just been a key strength for many years. I mean, since Tesla existed, he's had other companies. And you could say that there's maybe some overlap, maybe some competition in talent between SpaceX and Tesla, or the Boring Company or Tesla, or the Neuralink or Tesla to some extent. Maybe they both won H100s or something like that. But has it ever stopped any of these companies from growing? Has SpaceX suffered? Has Tesla suffered? I mean, the Cybertruck, this thing is so strong. I was just kind of looking at the wall in the garage, and there's like these little marks where the door is sometimes touching it, and the door is fine. This stainless steel alloy, came from Starship. The Boring Company tunnels in Vegas, they use Tesla cars, right? SpaceX uses Tesla batteries. There's all kinds of collaboration and overlap between these companies. I mean, I think it's an incredible asset compared to your Rivians or your Lucids of the world to have a CEO who has this enormous business empire behind him and has people at these companies just with expertise in a vast number of areas. The cross pollination there, I think, has been a big part in Tesla's success. So, did anyone get upset when, OpenAI was started in 2015? No, nobody cared. And did anyone get upset that he gave $50 million and was on the board? No. And it actually ended up benefiting Tesla. Then he left the board after he poached Karpathy. They didn't appreciate that. And, now they've got XAI. I see this as a positive for Tesla because the language model is really important. We're going to need it for Optimus. We're going to need it for the car. And, they could have used something like Llama 3. Training and making their own would be too expensive. And then you really have to make sure it's the best in the world, right? You don't want it to be shitty because then the robot isn't going to have the language skills that other robots have and it's not going to be competitive. So you really need a state of the art model. And that has, extreme spending needs to be a state of the art model. So you can either do that, which isn't attractive given the position Tesla's in with their core business right now, or you can use something like Llama 3, which is great, but that's licensed by Meta. They say it's free up to, I think, 700 million users. So it'd be fine for Tesla to use. But, what if Meta goes and changes their license in the future or something like that? It's much better, I think, to have a language model that's controlled by another Musk company. So the way I see it, Tesla shareholders are taking none of the risk, but they're getting all the benefit. XAI has published the Grok model for any company to use. There's nothing stopping Tesla from going and using it in their products, and they didn't really have to pay anything to train it. They didn't have to waste 100,000 GPUs. So really what they're trying to spin as a negative, I see as actually one of the key strengths of Tesla.
So one thing that you pointed out earlier in your post this morning was that it's June now, and both companies have received the 12,000 GPUs now. It was just kind of this minor swap from December to January. And it would have been a big deal if Tesla was compute constrained. But in March, he said we're no longer compute constrained. And in April, he said Tesla's actually number 2 after Meta, if you consider H100, equivalents. Can you speak a little bit about how much compute does Tesla have? And, if he had not swapped it out, would it had made Tesla even somehow better, faster, more, what was there harm made?
Well, there's obviously physical limitations in setting these things up, right? So you've got this enormous data center. There's a limitation to how much electricity you can get into that data center. There's a limit on cooling, there's a limit on space. And they're kind of at the saturation point in Palo Alto. So they're going to have 3 main data centers in North America. One's going to be located in Buffalo, New York. One's going to be located in Palo Alto, California, in the engineering center. And the other is going to be in their Austin, Texas gigafactory. So the California one, it's kind of maxed out. On top of that, electricity is also more expensive in California. That makes powering the computers more expensive. That makes cooling the computers more expensive. Texas has much cheaper power, and they have a ton of renewables, a ton of solar and wind in West Texas especially. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to power with renewable energy there too. And the New York location is on the East Coast, so you've got a good geographic spread there as well. Let's say there's a natural disaster or something on the East Coast or the West Coast, you'd have other data centers that were, still in operation or weren't affected. So I don't really, I think they're getting them up as fast as they possibly can. Like I said, the last 2 quarters, they've doubled their total training compute sequentially. This is an insane pace of compute being added. And they say that by the end of the year, they're going to more than double again to 85,000 H100s. And I've heard they're going to order even more than that in the future with Blackwell and future chips. So, if you just look at the video that's pinned on my profile, and it just shows the car driving through LA for 33 minutes, zero intervention. I didn't touch anything. It did all the driving, and this is boring now, right? People aren't even surprised. It happens to people all across the country every day. And that's a testament to the work the infrastructure team has done in spinning up this training compute insanely fast. And they're not done, right? They're going to continue expanding. I think the Texas edition is going to be, a huge, huge boost. Again, we're talking about more than doubling the training compute. So I refer you guys to the bitter lesson, right? Moore's Law. These chips just keep getting more and more performant. The performance per watt just keeps getting better and better. So when you have a solution like FSD12 that scales with compute, that is to say, the more compute you throw at it, the better it gets at driving. You just get to ride that wave of Moore's Law. And yeah, they're basically nowhere close to, stopping the addition of their training compute. They're, according to one of Elon's tweets today, going to spend $3 to $4 billion. So I don't really think you can look at the software and say that they came up short on the AI infrastructure team. I think they've been it's really a historical compute build out. I can't think of anybody else that's built out training compute capacity at this rate. And this isn't exactly a core competency for them. They haven't been running large data centers in the past. So they're bringing this up out of nothing. They were using the cloud for their data center for their normal Tesla account services. So this is very new for them. They're building up a core competency, and honestly, I think the team's doing a pretty incredible job. I don't think you can really say that they came up short in any way, honestly.
Okay. This is so reminiscent of 2018 when Tesla Q was so powerful and they really tried their best. Tesla at that time was very close to going bankrupt, and they did their best to, fight it. This is the same kind of flavor of what's happening now. And what we're seeing on X, where many of us who are on X right now, listening to the space, reading these tweets, we keep in touch with what's going on, but it's just a small part of the society out there. CNBC's on television, although they have not their declining viewership. But I'll tell you that YouTube viewers is completely different than the people on X. There's almost no crossover. So how do we fight Tesla Q, go beyond just X, and try to spread, counter all this escalating attacks on Tesla, especially when they see blood right now. They can see that, the annual shareholder meeting's coming up. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be more fun on TV, and this will ramp up into the vote, and even during the vote, there'll be there'll be FUD. I think people should be prepared. Like whatever the outcome is, like there's a plan, like there's a matrix, like there's a plan. But I just wanted to. I mean, I love what Omar went through, and I wanted to actually read the the post or the response that Omar asked a question, Omar's blog about how do you see Dojo coming along versus the NVIDIA cluster, and I think Elon's response in context with this whole conversation is really important. You said training compute for Tesla is relatively small compared to the inference compute. That's the inference compute is the Tesla chip. There's dual redundancy in each vehicle, and there's redundancy in each vehicle, and that's Tesla designed silicon hardware, fabbed out at TSMC, shipped back to Tesla, and Tesla builds it into the FSD computer, puts it in the car, and sells it, to consumers as part of the vehicle. And she goes, training compute for Tesla is relatively small compared to the inference compute, as the latter scales linearly with the size of the fleet. Perhaps the best way to think about it is in terms of power consumption. When the Tesla fleet reaches 100 million vehicles, does that sound like someone that's not committed to the growth or doesn't see the growth of Tesla? Is when the fleet reaches 100 million vehicles? Peak power consumption, I'll go back to the tweet, peak power consumption of AI hardware in all cars will be around 100 gigawatts. Training power consumption is probably less than 5 gigawatts. These are very rough guesses. Obviously, 5 gigawatts of training AI compute is enormous by current standards, but it's only about 5% of what's happening of total Tesla AI compute. Because there's a path for Dojo to exceed NVIDIA. It's a long shot, as I said before, but success is one of the possible outcomes. I just like to open it. I thought that was a really interesting tweet for there's many call outs in that tweet about the size of the fleet, the training power. Basically, a lot of this work is actually, and a lot of the compute is actually happening on the inference or the edge side versus on the actual training side, where Tesla actually has their own has a solution in mass production. I don't know if there's any comments on that tweet. I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dojo's a huge opportunity. And you look back, they've been investing in this for many years, long before we saw the current AI hype. They said we're going to build this AI training computer. So I think they just kind of have incredible leadership in kind of seeing what's important. I think obviously NVIDIA has just improved their performance so much and they're iterating so fast that it's been hard for Tesla to keep up. I think Dojo probably beats the A100 cluster, but doesn't beat the H100 cluster, which is why they're buying so many. And by the time you get Dojo 2, is that going to beat the Blackwells? Is that going to beat the Rubins? So, I mean, I think not just matching, but beating NVIDIA is very challenging. And they certainly have some pretty radical architectures to try and achieve that. They're not going soft, but it's going to be a very challenging thing. But obviously, the market opportunity is huge, as we can see from NVIDIA. So that's really the kind of company they are. I mean, this is, I think, so underappreciated because the story everybody wants to tell is that, oh, Elon Musk's an idiot or the business is failing. They want to tell this negative story. And nobody's actually realizing that. I mean, we have essentially one of the founders of OpenAI here, a pivotal figure in AI who's been talking about it for many years, investing in it long before it's cool, preparing by building up this fleet of millions of cars. And you have this AI boom that you're starting to see play out now. And yeah, I think this is just an uber transformative product that they have with the robotaxi coming up on 8.8, with the unbox process, revolutionizing the manufacturing, no controls, all piloted by FSD. I mean, they're really at a time when everybody's just trying to make the best car. They're not playing the game everybody else is playing. They're trying to overthrow the whole table. And I think it's just really exciting. And you just hear so much nonsense every day, you know. Oh, if Elon's leaving the company, or he's trying to steal the robot, or, you know, some ridiculous thing. And I don't think it's all, you know, I think all of it is not going to matter long term. What's going to matter is the product. And for people who've been following Elon, he doesn't give up easily. So for the bears who are getting excited, thinking this is their chance to stop Tesla, get rid of him, all they have to do is get a no vote, and that's the end. I don't think he's going to make it easy for them.
Yeah, I agree, and like I said, this is going to be like, to me, like a daily event for some period of time. I bring up the example, like Omar, you brought up a couple of examples, you know, things happening elsewhere, and it's not really whataboutism. It's like it's actual fact. Like, I don't want to screw myself here because some of these people could be like my clients, but anyway, just like this is public information. Amazon, the head of product, the SVP of engineering of Amazon, of anything that Amazon design, think of Amazon products like Echo and so forth, quote unquote, retires in like a month or two. He shows up as the CEO of Blue Origin. I didn't see like all the articles. I didn't see anything about like, what's Jeff Bezos doing? He's stealing talent from Amazon. He's taking it over to his rocket company, Blue Origin. You don't see anything. Well, by the way, he controls one of the major media outlets out there, which is Washington Post, which I'm sure there's reporters who are like, hey, I'm going to screw my entire career if I start writing adversely about, you know, Jeff Bezos. But and he donates to a lot of, you know, causes from, you know, and so forth. But anyway, just you don't see it because it's not Elon, it's not the disruption that he's driving. I mean, this is like prime example. I don't see any of the top 5 executives from Tesla being recruited to any of Elon's companies. None of them. And yes, there are people that will leave in various ranks and various people in the company, but you're talking about literally the head of engineering of Amazon leaving Amazon. He says he's retiring, by the way, and he shows up a couple months later as the CEO of Blue Origin. So anyway, just gives you an idea of like how the FUD out there works.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.